What's up, y'all? I'm back. I told y'all I wanted to hop into Mark, and honestly, I just pulled a bunch of different things that I felt like were good topics to show how today is still mocking and still built off the same foundations as back then. And honestly, it's because like they wasn't learning from nature. They didn't understand nature. They didn't have faith. And just to break down some things from kind of yesterday, I talked about how Jesus called Peter Satan, and how they're gonna talk about Satan and other things in here, but Satan is referring to the human mind, to how humans think, talking about how the body is weak, how the spirit is willing, but the body is weak. You're gonna hear that quote, and it just go to show like this human experience and thinking like a human and trying to always survive is the most ungodly way of thinking because you always either it just puts you in a low vibrational state when you think of how you're going to live, and when you constantly trying to survive with no faith, you're going to cross somebody you're not going to trust. You're going to constantly be trying to battle and go to war, and think in the sense of the survival of the fittest, and like shit like that just go to show like how lost we are, because even plants, even trees and shit, how they grow, like nigga, they grow around each other, they don't grow through each other, like, and it's like it's enough space for everybody. So it's really just a lack of understanding. Like it's never really had to be a survival of the fittest. Like, and even that don't even know makes. I guess survival of the fittest is a broad term, which I'm getting off topic because fittest don't necessarily mean strong, but it could mean smart, I guess. But who knows? Let's get into some parables. Listen, the farmer went out to plant some seeds. He scattered it across his field. Some seeds fell on his footpath, and the birds came and ate it. Other seeds fell onto a shallow soil with underlying rocks, and the seeds sprouted quickly because the soil was shallow. But the plant soon wilted under the uh, hot sun, and since it didn't have roots, it died. Other seeds fell among thorns that grew up and choked out the tender plants, so they produced no grains. Still, other seeds fell onto fertile soil, and they sprouted, grew, and produced a crop that was 30, 60, and even 100 times more, much as they had planted. And he said, anyone with ears should, anyone with ears to hear should listen and understand. But what I wanted to say while I was reading this, I'm just gonna keep going. Then Jesus going to say, if you couldn't understand the meaning of this parable, how will you understand all other parables? Because that's what I was just saying. If you talk about nature, if you start understanding the fundamentals of nature and how nature is pretty much a metamorphosis in that process on all things, like you'll start seeing everything. But when you start, if you can't understand that, you really want to understand the foundation of God and nature itself. But yeah, I was about to talk about society, but it really doesn't matter, and how society builds their own fundamentals. And you can try to learn that shit, but it won't lead to you understanding yourself because you're not a part. Like I don't really want to get into it, but you created systems, you created those societies. So they might have an identity of you, but they're not completely what you came from in a sense. Like you'll have to go to nature to see what you completely came from and see how you really are and shit like that. And like you said, if you don't understand parables, you don't understand nature. Like you really won't understand what I'm saying. And that go to having the ears and having the heart of God, like, and feeling and listening to people. Like you might be able to hear my words and understand my language, but you don't know what I'm trying to say. And they just go to show you what type of person you are, or what person, what the fuck. I'm not trying to. I'm tired of sugarcoating shit. The farmers planted seeds by let me see. The farmer planted seeds by taking God's words to others. The seeds that fell on the footpath represents those who hear the message. Oh, that's what I wanted to say. Just like when he broke down bread and things like that, it's a physical action, but he talking about how you supposed to move spiritually. Like same with the planting these seeds. He might be talking about something physical because you can see these things, and it gives you a good example. But he's telling you these things so you can relate it to your spirit and show you how, you know, how the spirit grows and how you really supposed to have faith, like how you supposed to be deep rooted. But he gonna get into it. And it says the seeds that fell on the footpath, those who hear the message only fuck, I'm fucking up. The seeds that fell on the footpath represents those who hear the message only to have Satan come and take it away. And the bird is not Satan. You're Satan because you didn't plant your seeds right. And the bird's just doing his job and coming to take it away. He's seen it and snatched it up. So it just, that's why I said when you hear these words like Satan, it's really referring to the human experience and the flesh in the sense of how weak the body is. And how you have to rely on the spirit. Let's see where I stop. The seeds on the rocky soil represents those who hear the message and immediately receive it with joy. But since they don't have deep roots, they don't last long. And this goes for like a bunch of different people. These next two things, let me just finish reading. But since they don't have deep roots, they won't last long. They fall away soon as they have problems and persecuted from believing God's words. The seeds that fell among the thorns represents the others who hear the God's word, but all too quickly the message is crowded out by the worries of this life, the lure of wealth and desire of other things, so no fruit is produced. And that's because either you're on one spectrum where you're super happy because you found some new knowledge, but you don't really have the spirit, or you really don't have the roots to, or the foundation to build on, in a sense. So you're not deeply rooted in it, and you're really just reading the surface level. That's people that end up becoming blind followers and things like that. And same for even the other group of people, like they might believe deep and cold-heartedly that's the answer, but they've been too emotionally battered and too emotionally scarred, and they kind of gave up on believing in the spirit because the physical had fucked them up too much. And they become followers in a sense of they think they're doing their own shit because they like, I'm just going to do me and, you know, whatever. But you following somebody because, like, it is like you're meant to be broken here, either in a way of you're going to go back to the Lord, or you're going to be broken here and stay here. And the seeds, and the seed that fell in good soil represents those who hear and accept God's word and produce harvest 30, 60, 100 times as much as been planted. And that's just for the people like you deep rooted. If you have foundation in faith, like, bro, there's nothing that can stop you. And this, I'm just going to, I guess I can go to the mustard seed. How can I describe the kingdom of God? And like I said, he used nature to illustrate, to describe the things that he's talking about, because nature is the best foundation to use, because that come from God. They come from, and that's where we come from. Point blank simple. Okay, how can I describe the kingdom of God? What story should I use to illustrate it? It is like a mustard seed planted in the ground. It is the smallest of all seeds, but it becomes the largest of the garden plants and becomes long branches, and the birds can nest and shade in it. And this goes to like Jesus being a carpenter and Moses being a shepherd. Like, here's going to be somebody that you don't expect. And once they finally sprout, you're going to be like, damn, I'm under their wing now. Honestly, like, you'll be under them in the sense that you want to follow and learn from them now. And now they giving you all type of shit. But because, I mean, we talking about garden, we talking about fruit, like, and that's just it's many ways you can understand that, but it's just saying, like, your faith might start out small, but through process, if you keep trying to believe, you keep trying to grow from that, you'll see. You'll see how much abundant you can become. So if you're small now, don't get discouraged in that idea of not being ingrained in the spirit. Because that's what it is. Like, that mustard seed is that same size. It just hasn't seen it yet. So, I mean, it's still that same essence and that same spacing. It just hasn't grew into its space yet. But same with, spirit, space, same thing. And then I'm going to read the Jesus calmed the storm to kind of end some of the parables. But let us cross the other side of the lake. So they took the boat and started out, leaving crowds behind. Other boats followed, but soon a fierce storm came up, waves breaking into the boat and began to fill with water. Jesus sleeping on the back of the boat, his head in the cushion. The disciples woke him up and shouted, "Teacher, don't you care? We're going to drown." When Jesus woke up, he rebuked the wind and said to the waves, "Silence, be still." Suddenly they stopped and the great winds was calm. Then he asked, "Why are you afraid? Do you still have no faith?" And it's like, honestly, like, if no weapon should prosper, if you never like be like, if shit like nature like gonna scare you, like the process of God, you truly have no faith. And that's the lowest level of that understanding. But still, it's like you can get through anything regardless of the fact. You just have to have faith. And the fact that he talked and said, "Be still," like that's just a signs of like y'all niggas be silent, y'all niggas be still. And once y'all was silent, once y'all was still, the storms ceased because I'm like everything is a representation of what you like your space and your energy. So if you're going through storms, you're going through that, like you probably got a lot of mental babble going on in a sense. And he was really like, you gotta like understand, he talking to his disciples as his lower versions of himself, or just like, or like his kid, however you want to describe it. Like I'm gonna stick to lower versions of yourself. If you have any ways of thinking of it, you go along with that. But he's telling him to be silent, be still, because he was comfortable, he was resting, he knew he was gonna be all right. And if you want to look at his physical disciples, once they seen he was faithful, once they seen it and followed him, they're like, all right, damn. And everything was fine. Honestly. It's really, it sounds crazy, but it is that simple. Mm-mm-mm. And I wanted to read this because this makes sense to like when I talk about people that you try to teach your family, friends, and people close to you, like, let's just get into it. Jesus left the part of the country and returned with his disciples to Nazareth, his hometown. The next Sabbath, he began teaching in the synagogue, and many who heard him were amazed. They asked him, where did he get such wisdom and powers to perform such miracles? Then they scoffed because he was just a carpenter, the son of Mary, the brother of James and Joseph, Judas and Simon, and his sister lived right here among us. They were deeply offended and refused to believe him. And the reason why is because they, nigga, we grew up with you. We grew up seeing you. Like, nigga, what are you? But they looking at the physical you. They not understanding how you been thinking compared to how they been thinking. And they just go along to show, like, you can try to change your people and your family and friends, but they the ones it's going to be the hardest to show them because they literally grew up with the physical incarnation of you. And they grew up probably, you know, thinking their own ways. And they seen you as a kid, so why would they just trust the kid? And they just go to show you, like, the world we still live in today that Jesus was going through. And like I said, when this society that Jesus was in wasn't built off nature, all these people were still lost, just like we lost now. So like I said, we still been off the same foundations of government and system because Jesus was trying to break people out of that and teach them and show them the ways out of that. But they were so lost, just like they are now. Like, and that's why he started predicting his own death and things like that, because he knew what he was telling them was going to ultimately offend them. Like he said, they be deeply offended because they like, well, fuck, and that shit resonates with people deeper and deeper. Jesus told a prophet is honored everywhere except in his own hometown and among his relatives and own family, and it's because of their unbelief. And he couldn't do any miracles among them except place his hands on a few sick people and heal them. And he was amazed at their unbelief. And what's crazy is like, damn, you really supposed to believe me because I came from you, but you have no faith in yourself, so why would you have faith in something that comes out of you? Or, you know, just however you want to look at that. And it's the same objective of many things in this world. Like, if you produce certain things, like if you're producing things or a farmer or something, if you don't really believe in yourself, why would you believe in your crops? Like, if you don't have, it just go to show you, like, faith is very strong if you start building and becoming, like I said, transmuting that shit into a real foundation. And really, like I said, putting roots, deep roots in good soil. You won't, at one point, you'll be unstoppable. And then I wanted to finish this off because he told his disciples to leave. He said, wherever you go, let me see where I was at. And he sent the disciples out. He sent them out by two, giving them authority to cast out evil spirits. He told them to take nothing on their journey except a walking stick, no food, no traveler's bag, no money. He allowed them to wear sandals and not the change of clothes. Why? Because he don't want nobody accepting you due to your physical appearance. And if you don't have money, you don't have these things, you have to ask. And these people literally have to be humble enough to help you. And that's just period. Like, when these people are going out, they're offering help. Are you listening? No, or yes or no? And it surely tests your spirit. And he was like, wherever you go in the home, stay in the same home until you leave town. But if any places refuse you to welcome you or listen to you, shake its dust from your feet and leave to show that you have abandoned those people to their fate. And it's because you asked for help in the same sense of you were hungry, you needed somewhere to sleep, and that's all you were asking for, versus you was going to pretty much awaken them and how else I want to say? It's just pretty much awaken them and help them mentally, in a sense. Something that'll help them way further more in the long run. Like you teaching them how to fish instead of giving them the fish, in a sense, like I talked about yesterday. But my video about to end, and that's pretty much where I wanted to end this video anyway, so it was perfect timing. But I'm out. Oh, yeah, I'll get back to it.